everyone, and welcome to another edition of Soulivity Live. I want to begin tonight's show with just a quick little story about a lovely couple from New York City. For many years, this couple was highly successful by any measure. I mean, they were both respectable attorneys. They made a great living. They were traveled. Now, early in their careers, they landed a couple of great jobs practicing law in Paris, the city of light. Amazing, right? And though they were going to be there, they thought they were going to be there for only 6 months. It ended up that they were staying there for 2 years. And while they were there, they dove into the city's world-renowned cuisine. And in addition, they started jotting down whatever their local favorites were. Now, whenever their friends would come visit, or they were there on business, they would share this list with them, and their list was a hit with everyone. So later, when they returned to New York, they decided that they would just keep this hobby going, and they would build this survey of New York restaurants, their favorites that were there. And then even later then they decided, well, why don't we just publish this thing? So they tried to get this published by a lot of the big publishing firms, and they got turned down time and time again. So they decided to just self-publish. They were even driving boxes of books to local bookstores so that they could stock the shelves with this survey that they had created. And then in 1986, a magical thing happened. New York Magazine did a cover story on them, and their sales just skyrocketed. And then shortly thereafter, they decided just to work for themselves full time. Now, 6 years ago, this is 2011, and 45 years after they started their little hobby in Paris, their company was bought by Google. Yeah, Google. And their ratings and reviews appear everywhere now. Now, this is the story of Tim and Nina Zagat. Yeah, like Zagat.com. And this relates to tonight's subject. We're talking about when your passion is a secret and how to move through this passion and bring it into the light so you can have a much happier life. And tonight we have the perfect person to join us in this discussion. Her name is Diane. She's an author and a certified life transition coach. And she's assisted thousands of individuals in learning how to heal deep emotional wounds, which restores them to mind, body, and spirit, beautiful health. So with that, let's welcome Diane to the show. Hey, Diane.
Hey there.
There she is.
Thank you for having me. Yay.
Oh man, I've been waiting. I've been so excited to do this with you in terms of the story, because it's an important piece for people to realize in terms of just trying to do what they love to do. Soulivity community, remember, we want your questions for Diane. So during the show, just post them directly to this live feed, and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. So, Diane, could you relate to that story?
Oh, I love that story. And, the thing that kept coming up for me as you were saying it is never give up. Don't let the obstacles get in the way. It doesn't matter if you're big or small, just keep doing what you love.
Exactly. I remember when the two of us were talking about doing what you love, and a lot of times what we do is we either try to hide it or we minimize it as, oh, well, this is just a little something that, that's a hobby or something just on the side, when really it's like, oh, we do this thing for free. Why do we do that?
Fear, I think, is a big one. And then we're conditioned to conform to the material world and that which our parents think we should do and that which society tees up for us, really.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for me, my theme has always been helping people. You know, I was a registered nurse,
Right.
and then I became a publicist, and I help other people get into media. So it's always about helping uplift or helping in some way, helping someone else. But I had this little thing that I did that it's part of it's a skill, part of it's a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't seem like the world I would be accepted for it. And so I kept it really quiet, and I only took it out and used it when my dear family or friends, and the word got around in my, you know, my circle of close friends and family,
Right.
because they would call me up and say, I need something. And then a lot of times I already intuited what was going to happen to them.
Right. Right.
And that's part of it. And so by the time they came to me, I asked a few questions, and I'd, you know, get them where they needed to go to get better.
Wow. Now, now I know your story is a beautiful story. Can you share just a little piece of how you moved out of fear into just doing what you love?
Well, you know, I didn't do it on purpose, and I sure didn't do it just on my own thinking it up. But I was doing what I do, and I am a publicist, and an author came to me, and she thought she might want to hire me to help get the word out about her book and get book signings. And she's a psychic medium, and she says, well, I see dead people. And I said, oh, wow, cool. Who do you see around me? Of course, being a nurse, I didn't have fear of that, because death and dying and beyond, and I do believe life goes on after. So, you know, it wasn't alarming. It was just kind of entertaining. And she told me about this young man, and who was with me. And she said, he's with you always. And I said, well, who is it? I don't know any young person who died. I wasn't thinking about my nursing career. Long story short, it was an HIV patient. That he came to me with such shame and humiliation for having acquired this disease. And I just loved him. I loved him with all my heart. I looked into his eyes, and I just gave him mother love. And that man transformed, and he got sicker, but he walked the mall to find a parting gift for me when I had to leave the clinic to get another job, in terrible, excruciating pain. And it was just a love story. He died years ago, and she said, he's with you always because you gave him more love than he had ever received in his life.
Wow.
In this lifetime. And I just thought, wow, look, you know, we don't have any idea what kind, loving, just giving that does for people. And love never dies. That is true. It goes on forever. So then she went on to say, he's here to help you with your gift because you can help so many other people. And I go, uh-oh. And that's how it started. I go, uh-oh.
So it sounded like what you needed to do, because in the story, the purpose of you doing that wasn't to heal him physically.
Right.
The purpose of it was to ease his pain and to connect with what's inside you, it sounds like. Am I right about that?
Yes, what I saw in him, and this is what I've been hiding all of my life, I see things about people that they don't necessarily know even themselves, or if they do, they don't want me to know. So I've done a lot of pretending, and that's hard, you know. Right. But what I saw in him was that he didn't love himself. He had been abused, and he had no love for himself. And I just thought, can I bridge the gap and show him that he is lovable? And I just gave that, and he believed me. Wow.
Well, it had to be there for him, for you to connect with him. And then now you're doing, that was your gift, right? That was your purpose. Now, question, If you had to give advice to someone else about like a good first step regarding like how to move out of, their secret passion or dream, what would you tell them?
Well, you have to find what it is, because what I had any value. I mean, my son would come to me with back pain, and I said, "Oh, you have a kidney stone. Let's go to the ER to get it diagnosed." And I do things like that all the time. And at first I thought, well, that's just part of my nursing career.
Right.
So then I realized, wait a minute, this is more than what I learned in school.
Right.
I can see things. And so, so I think that one thing that gives you that spark of passion, where you just feel totally open, and you love it so much that you lose track of time,
Okay.
and that that's what you crave. Okay. Whether it's exercise, or it's writing a book, or it's tapping into a gift that you have. And the first step is to own it.
Wow.
And then whatever fear is around it, because there probably will be fear around it, because it might interfere, like mine did, with my real job or my real life, or my identity. I think that's, we have an identity. We've sold the rest of our world on our identity. And now we have an extra secret, and we want to be accepted for that. So
right.
For part of it is you have to believe that what you have to offer has value.
Right.
And then you have to own it.
Wow. Now, I know, it's funny because there's support comes from many different sources. And one source of support in my own life, even recently, was a reminder, was Steve Harvey's book on, your gifts, right? And he mentioned that while all of us may have talents and abilities, and that might be multiple, all of us really only have one gift, one specific gift that we express through ourselves. Do you agree with that, in terms of like we can have a gift that we express it through our many talents and abilities? Do you agree with that at all?
Yeah, because mine always, what I've done throughout my life always has a theme, and that's helping others. So how can I think the answer to that is, how can you express the best way that gift that you have? Because it can be expressed in a lot of different ways. Maybe like Oprah's a teacher. She says that's her identity, that's her soul. Right. So she could have taught kindergarten or first grade, right, but here she is teaching the world, yes?
Right.
So I think, and so I believe that we're at a place in our world where our gifts can be used on a bigger platform, and that bigger platform then can reach more people. So my my intuitive healing and knowing was always on a little secret small platform. And when I was given permission to open it up, I've helped so many people that, they're in tears of how I've touched them. Right. And so that's the part. I think that's why we're here, to share what we have in our own unique way.
Wow. Okay. Now, I know there's people out there that are like, okay, Brian and Diane, okay, that's all sounds great, but what about the day job, right? I mean, we have to pay bills and maintain a lifestyle. What would you say to those folks?
So this is a very important one, because around it is fear. Are we going to be rejected? It starts at 2 years old, when you start saying no for the first time. What do our parents call 2-year-olds? Terrible twos, because they put us in timeout for being us. So our authentic self gets tapped down, because we know at 2 years enough to know we can't get in the car to go buy our own toys and our own candy. So we're gonna, we conform to what our parents want us to be, to keep safe, and then we continue doing that. And then we build a life, and we have responsibilities, and we've made agreements. So now you look at the agreements and responsibilities I have that pays raising a family. It would be irresponsible to give up all of, and some people I think in terms of my value and what I recommend is that you continue to honor the agreements that you have made. And if those agreements need to change because you're going to be doing something different, then you look at how can I do that in a way that honors my agreement and honorably makes some changes.
You know, it's funny that you talk about how children process information. And, you know, a couple of nights ago, we were talking to Dr. Westley about how we learn fear and how fear is integrated into our lives. And then from that moment on, we're living from the brainstem, you know, fight or flight. And it's in everything we do, even when we don't think it's everything we do, from our professional careers to how we relate to people. You know, our world is dictated by that specific fear. So fear is a big part of the journey, and mainly trying to manage it or deal with it. How do we manage those fears around basically doing what we love to do and moving out of just kind of the survival mode of what we learned before as a child? How do we do that?
Well, we're conditioned to think in terms of black and white. So we're conditioned to think that it's either this or that, and we can't do both. So that's a part of what we can learn is that yes, we can do more than one thing, and can they be integrated? First of all, can we do both of them? And then the second piece of it is, for me anyway, is that look at fear. Fear is primal, and it's a heads up to give us, you know, a heads up on, oh my gosh, maybe this is something that could be dangerous for us in some fashion. Right. So what we can do is take a look at the fear, and this is when I followed a support group of women diagnosed in late stages of cancer for which there is no cure, right? Right. Of this particular cancer. I mean, lots of cancers are curable, but basically what they were taught is that, of course, you're going to be in fear of your mortality. So you can think about that every day. Or you can take a look at the fear and you can say, you know, sort of make friends with it. Okay, thanks for the heads up. You're telling me something that could be dangerous. Right. So what am I going to do? A lot of our fears are perceived expectations of something that never really comes to pass. So we can take a look at the fear and we can analyze it and we can say, what am I most of? Because if we stay in fear, we're going to attract that which we're afraid of. Right. We're going to bring it in. Right. So we don't want to bring it in. So we're going to say, okay, I have a fear that this could possibly happen. How can I navigate this in a way that that thing that I'm concerned about doesn't happen? Right. Because, you know, then we have choices. Stay in the creative space. Gotcha. When you're dealing with fear, because if the fear overcomes you, you won't be able to think in terms of creativity, and you won't be able to work yourself out of it.
You know, it sounds like too that you're talking about something that I practice, and that is, it's okay to have a plan. It's okay to, like, you don't have to just say, okay, at you know, 8:30, I'm just going to start doing what I love to do and drive yourself into overwhelm, right? I mean, you can actually have an incremental plan that every day you're going to be working on this and transition from point A to point Z.
And like the story in the beginning that you told, look how many years it took. Right. You know, we really don't know. So, you know, when I was, you know, informed that Steve, my patient who died, is with me all the time and that he's here to help me, all I did was start talking to him. I didn't do anything else. I mean, I'm a publicist. I love what I do. And, but if there's another way, I can also help people by giving workshops on weekends or, you know, do private coaching sessions, then I'm available for that. But, so I just started slowly getting familiar with that thing that I had pushed down for so many years. So, there's just, I think, be creative and explore different ways that you can integrate what it is you love and what gifts you have to expand yourself. And really, because when you do accept and expand and bring in your gifts and then express them outward, you really are integrating your soul with who you are. And all of you, it gets really lonely to pretend and hide all the time.
Right, right. Now, speaking of alone, because we probably are never really truly alone, but
Right.
one important aspect of this is who's in your circle as you do this. Because I mean, the truth is probably not everyone is going to be 100% down with you doing and living from that space, because they have their own fears that they're dealing with, right? So what's some suggestions around how to deal with that situation? I mean, where people, number one, when people are coming in being negative, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, this is a big one, because what I tell people, when you're going through your growth and expansion and stepping into all of who you are and accepting it, you can't unlearn what you learn. Now you know what you have and what you want, and your heart is in it. And not everyone wants you to change. They want you the way that you were, because you had an agreement. You each had your unspoken agreements of roles that you were going to play together.
Right. That you learned from a kid a long time ago. Okay, you're supposed to be like this. You're supposed to be like that.
Yes, and it can be threatening to some people. It can be offensive to some people.
Right.
So, I think, but as we go through life, regardless, we're going to be changing and growing, and some of our friends are going to drop away. Relationships have a lifespan and a shelf life.
Yeah.
Hopefully the ones dearest to us, like our partners that we, chose to be our forever partner, hopefully that will happen.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that we don't know, and there's a lot of variables in life. So, you have to have that strong conviction to know that what you're doing is not hurting anyone, and that what you're doing is for your good and the good of all. And, hopefully the people that you love dearly will be supportive.
Yeah. You and I have kind of talked about that you have to remember to try to bring into your life those people that are of their highest good, and that they're sharing that with you for your highest good, and that it's not like, okay, well, if it's negative, I just got to hear it. That you can actually say, no, I can deflect that, and not even, like Dr. Leslie said in the show earlier in the week, you can turn away from that, right? Because I think to what you're saying, it's important to keep yourself grounded in the space of doing what you love to do, which is always a peaceful space, always a harmonious space, because it's you at your highest level, right?
And yes, and also we don't need to be evangelists for what it is that we do, because when we're stepping into something new, we want to tell the world, and then we realize that, well, not, be careful what you share your gift with, because it's like a baby that you're nurturing, and if you have enough people shooting you down, you might again stop.
Right.
So there's a lot of people who don't want to hear about my story and what it is that I do, and it might go totally against their belief system. And so I'm only here to help those that are wanting to receive,
right,
and sharing what I know, and learning what they know, as it's when it's reciprocal.
right.
And so like you have a beautiful show, a beautiful magazine, and you have a lot to offer. And if there's somebody who's not interested, I can tell you there's a lot more people interested than not interested in what you're doing. But and it's growing, and that's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you stepped into your calling. It's a calling, isn't it?
Yeah. And I guess that's what what all of us that are in this space are trying to do with other people. Receive your calling, receive what that place, that space that really makes your heart fly. As you were talking about maybe people who are negative, I was also thinking about something I discussed with a loved one earlier in the week, and that is, just because you ask for these negative influences not to come, or negative energy to come into your space, doesn't mean that you won't be challenged sometimes. And there's a purpose in that, right? Where over time, you may have these experiences, but those in of itself will make you stronger, because there will be times at which someone's going to flow into your life and probably say, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing that? Go back to doing what you were doing. That's safer.
Yeah, there's some boundaries that we always have to keep in mind. And sometimes it's just their stuff, maybe it's projected onto you and it's not yours.
Right.
And so we have to know what's mine, what's yours, and what's ours. So that's really helpful when, you're being against something that is additive, or, trying to dissuade you from being all that you are.
Right. Maybe that's the new paradigm around what we need to teach our children.
Yes.
Right. And so instead of just saying, time out, go put your head in the corner, maybe there's a different way we can do it, where we honor the energy and the excitement that the 2-year-old has, and embrace it in a different way. Maybe I'll ask that of my folks on Tuesday. We got Tuesday.
Nice.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, I don't like that side of you when your 2-year-old acts out, how about, well, that's interesting. Let's learn how we can express that in a way that will be received well.
Right. And this is a boundary. I have a boundary, which means that, so the kid can also learn the boundary, because the timeout part has a little bit of the boundary in it too, right?
Yes.
We're trying to relearn how to deal with that programming of always living in fear, that you always have to be this way, and the socialization part. With the time left, tell us, can you give us a little sneak preview about what you're working on?
The book?
Yeah.
Whoops, I'm going, uh-oh. Did I guess right? Yeah. So before I had this experience that kind of opened what I do up, what I can do, and what I've been hiding, I started writing a book called The Healing Matrix.
Okay.
And it is explaining how our emotions are the seed that help develop disease or unease in our bodies, and health disorders, pain, all of that comes from an emotional component. And Candace Pert, PhD, beautiful scientist who died recently, she was in What the Bleep Do We Know and some other movies.
Right.
She showed scientifically in the laboratory that our emotions affect our bodies, and that there is a direct communication between the two. Western science has done a disservice by separating out us into compartments when we are all one unit. So I have worked with people who, and I can give you a real quick example, but I think we're out of time.
No, go for it. Go for it.
So this woman came over to dinner, and she was choking, and she said, "Oh, my throat's so sensitive." And I said, was there a time in your life where you couldn't express yourself? She goes, and she's very outspoken. So I go, why am I asking this question? I already know that part. And she said, no. And I said, I believe that all physical ailments or disorders start with the emotional component. And she said, oh, I don't believe that at all. And so I persisted. I said, well, is there a time in your life to express yourself? She goes, Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, of course, when I was growing up, my dad was a drunk and we couldn't tell anybody. We had to keep it a secret from all the neighbors. And I go, oh,
Wow.
that's the place you start with healing. And so with that, I can heal her sensitive throat.
Wow.
That could, left untreated, turn into something not so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure that we have information on you and how people can reach you in terms of your intuitive, transition health and all the other services that you offer, so people can seek you out. Thank you, Diane. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing how to help people move this passion out of the shadows into the light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the truth is, the world needs what you have to offer. Soulivity community, they really do. Diane's going to be back on next month. We're going to be continuing this conversation. So don't worry about, missing out on something. We're going to keep this going because this is good stuff. So thank you again, Diane. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and bless you for all that you do.
Thank you. So until then, this is Brian Westley Johnson saying thanks again for joining us on Soulivity Live. And remember, life is all about passion, purpose, and good living. Good night.